Hello everyone, welcome to MediaNama. On November 14th, the IT Ministry notified the Digital Personal Data Protection Rules. Under these rules and the broader data protection regime, platforms have to obtain verifiable parental consent before processing the data of anyone under the age of 18. With this compliance requirement in place, many are curious about how platforms will identify who is an adult and who is not. To get a sense of how age verification works today and the challenges associated with it, MediaNama spoke to Sandesh GS, the Chief Technology Officer for Bureau, which provides compliance and identity listening services. Hi,
Yeah.
Sandesh. Thanks for joining us. Could you just introduce yourself, please?
Yeah. Hey, I'm Sandesh. I'm Chief Technology Officer at Bureau. Bureau is in the area of compliance and fraud solution, which our goal is to um, make sure our merchants' customer journeys are safe and trust, and it's accelerated. Uh,
Sandesh, just to start off, could you give us a sense of what is going on in the realm of age verification today? What is working and what is not working?
Yeah, Kamya. So I think there are age verification. There are majorly two, three techniques that everybody follows. One is looking at biometrics. Second is tying them back to a device, and then third is looking at your documentation, whether it is Aadhaar or any other form of government documentation, to make sure you are allowed to access the content that you're doing. So what is not working, there is significant form of, whether it is using deepfakes or AI generated tools or using traditional methods, a significant identity theft is going on. That means people will forge the document, upload the document of someone else, put their photo one, and then inject someone else's image in liveness. So a lot of compromise in the area of documentation. In device, as you all know, device gets shared. It's hard to map a biometric to a constantly to a device. So this forces a lot of our merchants to constantly bring back friction in every step of the customer journey if the balance is not figured out. So this is where the current pain point is.
So I was looking a while back, I was looking at what Australia was doing on its own, age gating systems that it's trying to put in place. And there was a study that was
Mhm.
done which talked a little bit about something called buffer zones. So these are areas
Mhm.
which are, let's say India tries to restrict under 18 users from accessing services without parental consent. Their point was basically that, users who are 17 or users who are 19 would be hard to determine. So, what is this buffer zone and how does this work? And are there
Yeah.
any mechanisms that companies can put in place to sort of address this?
Yeah. See, I think it's largely driven by the confidence of machine learning models. While the accuracy is reasonably good or constantly gets improved backed by LLMs, but still it's not to the point where it can be decimal level accuracy, right? So that's why if we want a band, it works reasonably well, but when we want a point in time of age, it does not work well. One thing that we constantly do, and this goes to every use case that we see or we solve for, is also you can work with your customers to one fine tune specifically for the use case, to say, okay, you want a wider range before a step A, and step B, you want you can be a little more conservative, right? Fine tuning the model based on use case, that's one. And then we also have a lot more confidence intervals where um, you're predicting an age span, which is extremely close to where the cutoff is. Then coming up with various confidence intervals. That's how different products work. So based on that confidence interval, though you're confident the person is probably 17 to 19 or 18 to 20, but the content was for 18 plus, then you could go put additional measures to do liveness verification or ask for additional documentation. So two things that we do: one, work with customers to fine tune based on the risk, fine tuning the solutions. And then second also is whenever the band is narrow, coming up with confidence intervals with a different intervention as needed. Right? These are the two things that generally we see it working. But true, the models are still not so accurate to the point of decimal level.
One of the things I'm curious about in the age verification process now, with deepfakes becoming a big problem, is there scope for them to sort of impact the efficacy of age verification systems? Is it a concern that, children
Yeah,
could?
for sure. Like deepfake is, especially with now Gemini 3.0 launch, that you'll see this skyrocket, but it's been skyrocketing. It's extremely easy to create a deepfake image. See, all of us assume, if I take an example of a device, right? When we want to age verify a customer, we assume device is not compromised. If you compromise a device and you throw in a deep fake by compromising device, you are assuming this image is coming from a camera. Now I am as a fraudster, I am somebody who is trying to overcome this limit restriction by putting my own image instead of the image that comes from camera, right, which is defaked image. Then it's extremely easy. So there are two things. One is identification of deepfake is important, of course, but second is prevention, which means, are you working with a safe device? Are you working with a non-compromised device? Do you know if the image that you as a merchant are validating is actually coming from live camera feed or live gallery instead of a deepfake source? That's equally important. So we see deepfakes happening not only in age verification, in all sorts of KYC, all sort of verification where image is involved significantly. Audio is picking up as well. But the solution is both check for the patterns of image, but more importantly, prevent the source of it. Make sure the device, the source of where you're getting from image is not compromised.
Got it. And let's say, so you talked a little bit about the merchant bit. So for
Yeah.
businesses in a lot of segments, so for instance, social media or e-commerce, even get from what this is based on my conversations with folks there, even getting somebody onboarded, making them do a purchase, making them, set up an account on their service is fairly hard. So, you know, how do platforms sort of avoid this friction from that will come into onboarding from age verification technology and processes? How can
Yeah.
it be implemented without, issues in that realm?
Yeah. No, see, on frictionless onboarding, I think on if I take example of frauds beyond, even take example of frauds, right? While age verification is important to make sure the content or the e-commerce journey is appropriate for right age, but this is true for all where in if you're not regulated, or it's not a business where it's not regulated and license becomes must to operate. Like if you're a bank, you need to introduce friction. But if it's not, then you still need to comply. And how do you do business without introducing a friction becomes extremely critical. So that's where the behavioral patterns of shopping that's really picking up well, right? Can you um, once you verify an age span, let's assume I've from a device of my Google Pixel, I verified a device that it's a person of a certain age, and I constantly see there are 2, 3 customers who are using this device of my app in the same device, but 2, 3 users in a different patterns. It could be that these customers are using it from a different location. It could be that the way these customers shop, these customers look for products are different. So the behavioral patterns, combination of location and how they interact with your app, you will have to identify a persona and make sure, though I have device, I've made sure this device has 3 users. One of them is probably less than 18 and 2 are more than 18. Based on the shopping pattern, with reliable confidence, I can say, look, this is a customer who is not less than 18, so I'm okay for them to go through different parts of the shopping journey. Whereas these steps clearly indicate the customer is of less than 18 age shopping pattern. Hence, I need to introduce more friction becomes very, very important because um, beyond just as you said, there's so much drop off whenever you introduce a friction. So it's important to combine device, behavioral pattern, and then put gates and frictions as needed, or bring down as needed. So this is what we recommend with our customers, where whenever device sharing happens and there are multiple customers, look at behavioral patterns, look at location patterns. Looking at that, you'll be still able to identify if which of the customer within this device is the real user, and then bring down, instead of putting all three people on the same friction, you can bring it down to probably one, right? And that's a 60% reduction.
Interesting. So, and I want to clarify this. At what level do you think age assurance tools should be implemented? Because you've talked about behavioral patterns, and those
Yeah.
would be platform specific, right? So, what do you recommend? Do you recommend like a platform level age assurance approach, or an app store level approach, or is there a third way to think about this issue?
No, I think, see, the most fine-grained obvious filter is to be there when there is a critical part of your shopping journey. Is lot of the customers or a lot of the merchants we interact with are all becoming multi-use case applications. They're becoming super apps, right? The same application as financials, the fintech, the same as e-commerce, same as edtech. So it's probably very harder to do it at an application level, and it's critical to think it applies to age verification, it applies to even standard KYC, it applies to all the fraud check. Now that you become a super app, how do you modularize your product experience so that you can put, whether it is age restriction compliance or any compliance checks, at the right phase of the customer journey? So we always work with our customers, and this has been our learning, is to say, whenever they're launching a new business, which does need additional compliance check like this age verification, we work with them to say, how do you make sure, how do you design your both technical and product architecture to keep it modular so that you can become compliant, and then introduce friction only in that part of the journey. It applies to both architecture and experience, because critical to introduce frictions only when needed. Else, as we were talking previously, though, there'll be significant drop-offs. The ideal path is to have frictions in critical parts of the application journey.
And how do you think we should solve for such? So DPDP rules, even right now, parts of them will come into place, and parts of them will
Yeah.
actually be implemented like 18 months from now. Children are onboarding the platform every day. They must have been doing that since the draft rules first came out. How do we solve for situations where a child may have already onboarded a platform before the rules, sort of come into effect? Is there scope for something called retroactive age gating? Can you verify people now as opposed to, having done that
Yeah.
in the onboarding stage?
Yeah, no, I think, look, the DPDP does not restrict itself to newly onboarded users. It will also apply to a lot of the customers who our merchants would have already onboarded. It could be, so one, go take a look at applying fresh DPDP guidelines to look at ask for fresh verification. That's one. Second, look at behavioral patterns and look at what was done before. Start taking a look at what have you stored, what is additionally stored, which does not require for the use case of age verification, because DPDP also talks about keeping data as minimal as possible. So one, start applying probably fresh verification methods. Go back and look at your confidence to say which were successfully verified. Third, bring in all the best practices of data purging, data getting rid of data archival wherever you have biometrics or points which are beyond. For example, if you had Aadhaar, date of birth, and face, for example, then you need to come back and say, can I just keep it with age band for age verification? Can I just put an age band, and based on the use case, can I just say yes or no against this customer ID? Doing that to be compliant with DPDP, and then also going back and asking users if this was not introduced or verified successfully, just going back and letting them know that in the part of the journey, that whether it is taking a lot more specific consent as DPDP mandates, or giving them option to purge the data, etc. That becomes more important in the journey. But going back and taking a look at what you have done, and then seeing the gap with where the DPDP guidelines are is the first natural step.
Got it. And because you talked about data minimization, I just wanted to understand
Yeah.
how do we handle data retention for sensitive information that a platform may capture or an age assurance technology may capture during the process of verifying age.
Yeah. See, the any personally identifiable information that includes biometrics, your spectrum of privacy, right? One is simple encryption, which is to say, can we just encrypt the data and keep it? And then you have a lot more sophistication of called hashing, where you do one-way hashing, which is not usable for any other purpose than just validating whether this customer is verified. And then third is zero knowledge proof, right? So there are various spectrum of privacy. This is what we do at Bureau. Like anything that we personally collect, personally identifiable information gets hashed, one-way hashed, even when we have a consent from our customers to keep it. And then only looked up to say, is this the same user or not? Can the same fraud score be leveraged for this customer or not? That limits its use for A, any other use case, then B, even in case of data compromises, data breaches, the data exposure of the customers that you deal with become extremely minimal. So I would always recommend going one-way hashing, keeping it in a way which cannot be used for other purposes than just do a lookup. That's what we do at Bureau, and that's what I've seen work as the balance between privacy and giving a friction-free user experience.
Got it. That's largely it in terms of what I wanted to ask you. Is there anything else you would like to add or discuss?
No, I think the technology's evolving a lot in age verification. At the same time, I think we are at the mix of DPDP, which is bringing a lot more compliance and regulatory view, and then we have LLMs and AIs, which is pushing the boundary of technology and making it a lot more accurate. And then, as you rightly said, merchants are at the cusp of how do we constantly give friction-free experience, do adaptive authentication, knowing the risk, knowing the behavioral patterns of our customers, can we increase or reduce the friction? I think we are at the very critical junction as we move into next year on how, whether it is Bureau or others, how we'll be architecting solution to sort of be at the center of all these three dimensions is going to be very interesting here.
Thank you so much, Sandesh. Thank you for joining us for this.
Thank you. Thank